Danny Silva wiped his weathered hands on his janitor's uniform as he surveyed the hospital equipment auction. 43 years old, 20 years keeping St. Mary's Medical Center spotless. And this was his idea of excitement, bidding on surplus medical equipment with his lunch money. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the warehouse. Next item, lot 47B, this UH. He squinted at his clipboard. Bioscanner, manufacturer unknown, came from the Alien Wing donation. Been sitting in storage for 8 months. No manual, no warranty. Who'll start the bidding at $50? Danny studied the device, about the size of a microwave, covered in what looked like mother-of-pearl panels with soft, pulsing veins of blue light running through them. Beautiful, actually. The thing hummed quietly, almost musically, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. $50? Anyone? How about 25? The crowd of medical professionals and equipment dealers remained silent. Dr. Martinez, from cardiology, whispered to her colleague, alien tech without documentation could be dangerous. 15? Come on, folks. It's clearly functional. Look at those lights. Danny raised his hand. 250. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. The auctioneer looked confused. Sir, the starting bid is $15, not $250. No, sir. $2.50. More laughter. The auctioneer shrugged. Well, it's the only bid. Going once, twice. Sold to the gentleman with the excellent sense of humor. As Danny approached the payment table, he overheard Dr. Martinez talking to her companion, a tall, elegant being with iridescent skin and large, dark eyes. One of the Zephyrians who worked in the pediatric ward. Poor man has no idea what he's bought, Dr. Martinez said. That's a galactic positioning resonance scanner. They cost more than most people's houses. The Zephyrian Dr. Kess, Danny recognized her, now looked troubled. If it's broken, perhaps it's better in harmless hands. Those scanners ... double quotes. She paused, her voice dropping. They reveal things that some prefer remain hidden. Danny pretended not to listen as he counted out exact change. 2 crumpled dollar bills and 2 quarters. The cashier looked at the money like it might bite her. 20 minutes later, Danny had the scanner loaded in his pickup truck. The thing was surprisingly light for its size and warm to the touch. The humming grew slightly louder as he lifted it, almost responsive. Back in his basement workshop, Danny set the device on his workbench next to his collection of rescued hospital equipment heart monitors he'd fixed. 4 pumps he'd refurbished, wheelchairs he'd restored for the local senior center. His wife Maria always called it his electronic graveyard, but Danny saw potential where others saw problems. The scanner's blue veins pulsed more brightly in the dim basement light. Danny ran his fingers along the smooth surface, feeling for seams, access panels, anything that might indicate how to open it up. The humming shifted pitch slightly at his touch, almost like purring. "What are you, beautiful?" he murmured. As if responding to his voice, one of the panels slid aside with a soft whisper, revealing an interior that looked nothing like any technology Danny had ever seen. Instead of circuit boards and wires, there were crystalline formations that sparkled like frozen music, connected by filaments that looked organic, almost like nerve fibers. And floating in the center, a holographic display activated star charts, thousands of them, with blinking dots scattered throughout like Christmas lights on a cosmic tree. Danny stared at the holographic display, his janitor's instincts kicking in. After 20 years of maintaining complex hospital equipment, he'd learned that blinking lights usually meant something needed attention. These weren't error codes, though they pulsed in patterns, some fast, some slow, some in clusters. "Okay," he said to himself, settling into his folding chair. "Let's figure out what you're trying to tell me." The display responded to his proximity, zooming in on sections as he leaned closer. Each blinking dot, he realized, had information attached, streams of data in languages he didn't recognize, but also symbols that looked almost mathematical. Coordinates, maybe? Danny had always been good with patterns. It's what made him an effective janitor, seeing what was out of place, understanding the rhythm of how things should work. Hospital systems had their own logic. When the 4-pump beeped twice versus 3 times, why the autoclave made that clicking sound, how to tell if the X-ray machine needed calibration just by listening. This felt similar. The dots weren't random. They formed a structure, almost like a filing system. He touched one of the slower blinking lights. The display expanded, showing detailed schematics of what was clearly a spaceship. Not sleek like in the movies, but industrial, functional. Like the medical equipment he worked with daily, built for reliability over beauty. Text scrolled alongside the schematic, and Danny's breath caught. Some of it was in English. Merchant vessel distant horizon. Last transmission. Coordinates 847.23, 156. Status. Navigation system failure. Crew 23. Cargo. Medical supplies for Kepler station. He touched another dot. Another ship. Another crew. Another story of people lost in the vast darkness between stars. Jesus, Danny whispered. You're showing me missing ships. The scanner's humming intensified, and the display pulled back to show the full galactic map. Hundreds of thousands of blinking dots. Each one a ship, a crew, families, somewhere waiting for word that would never come. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from his daughter Carmen at nursing school. Hey, Dad, can you help me study for my emergency response exam tomorrow? I'm struggling with triage protocols. He looked at the message, then back at the scanner. Triage. The art of determining who could be helped first, who could wait, who was beyond saving. It was a skill. Danny understood. He'd worked enough hospital emergencies to know that sometimes you had to make impossible decisions with limited information. But what if you had all the information? What if you could see everyone who needed help? Danny stood up and walked upstairs. Maria was in the kitchen, grading papers from her third-grade class. She looked up as he entered, concern creasing her face. You look like you've seen a ghost, Mio. Maria, if you found out something important, I mean really important, but it was bigger than anything you'd ever dealt with, what would you do? She set down her red pen. After 25 years of marriage, she knew when Danny was wrestling with something serious. I'd probably start by telling my husband and asking for his help thinking it through. Danny almost smiled despite the weight settling on his shoulders. What if it wasn't something you could handle alone? What if it needed experts? Then I'd find the right experts. But Danny, what's this about? Before he could answer, there was a knock at the front door. Danny peered through the window and saw Dr. Kess from the hospital standing on their porch, still in her medical scrubs. Her usually composed expression showed signs of distress. Danny, Maria said quietly, did you do something? He opened the door. Dr. Kess looked at him with those large, dark eyes that seemed to hold too much knowledge. Mr. Silva, she said, her accent making his name sound musical. I believe you purchased something at the auction today that belongs to my people. May I come in? We need to discuss what you've found. Behind her, Danny noticed a sleek vehicle he'd never seen before, its surface reflecting the streetlights like oil on water. I think, Danny said, stepping aside to let her in, you'd better come downstairs. Dr. Kess followed Danny through the house, her footsteps surprisingly quiet on the wooden floors. Maria trailed behind, curiosity overcoming caution. When they reached the basement, Zephyrian stopped abruptly at the sight of the active scanner. Oh, ancestors preserve us, she breathed. It's not broken. It's fully operational. The holographic display cast blue light across her iridescent skin, making her look almost ghostly. She approached the device with the reverence someone might show a religious artifact. Dr. Kess, Danny said carefully, what exactly did I buy? A galactic positioning resonance scanner, Mark 7, the last one of its kind. She gestured at the swirling star map. My people developed these 3 centuries ago to track our merchant fleets across the galaxy. When this one went missing during a diplomatic mission 8 years ago, we assumed it was destroyed. Maria moved closer to the display. As a teacher, she'd always been drawn to learning. It shows lost ships. Every vessel that ever transmitted a distress signal filed a flight plan that was never completed, or simply vanished between stars. Dr. Kess's voice carried a weight of grief. There are over 400,000 entries in the current database. Danny felt that number hit him like a physical blow. 400,000 ships, stations, colonies. Space is vast, Mr. Silva. Things get lost. Equipment fails. Pirates attack. Sometimes people simply disappear. She touched one of the blinking dots. This one here, the merchant vessel Distant Horizon. 47 souls aboard. They've been missing for 6 years. But you can see where they are, Maria said. Can't you rescue them? Dr. Kess's expression darkened. That's the problem. The Galactic Council decided these scanners were too dangerous. Too expensive to maintain rescue operations for every lost ship. Too politically complicated when some of those ships were carrying sensitive cargo or passengers who preferred to stay missing. So they just gave up. Danny's janitor instincts rebelled against the idea of walking away from problems that could be fixed. They classified the technology as economically inefficient for large-scale implementation. Dr. Kess's tone suggested what she thought of that decision. All scanners were supposed to be destroyed. This one survived because it was in diplomatic transport when the order came through. Danny studied the display again. Each dot wasn't just a ship, it was people. Families waiting for word. Children who would grow up never knowing what happened to their parents. He'd seen enough emergency situations at the hospital to understand that time mattered. Every minute of delay meant lives lost. Dr. Kess, he said slowly, what would happen if someone started using this scanner to actually rescue people? Mr. Silva, you must understand rescue operations in deep space require massive resources, specialized ships, trained crews, months of travel time. The cost of saving one ship could fund a small planet's medical system for a year. That's not what I asked. Dr. Kess looked at him for a long moment. If someone started conducting unauthorized rescue operations using classified Galactic Council technology, they would face significant opposition from very powerful people who prefer the current system. Maria crossed her arms. What kind of opposition? The kind that makes people disappear. Dr. Kess moved away from the scanner. Mr. Silva, I came here to warn you. Within hours of the auction, my government received inquiries about the scanner's whereabouts. Corporate interests are already mobilizing to acquire it. What kind of corporate interests? Salvage companies. They prefer to recover valuable ships and cargo without the expense of keeping crews alive. Her voice turned cold. It's much more profitable to find empty hulks and to mount rescue operations. Danny felt anger building in his chest. So they want to let people die so they can loot the wrecks more efficiently? Business is business, as you humans say. Dr. Kess pulled a small device from her pocket. This will disable the scanner temporarily. I strongly recommend you use it and forget you ever saw this technology. Danny looked at the device, then at the scanner's display, showing hundreds of thousands of lost souls. Dr. Kess, in all your years of medicine, have you ever walked away from a patient you could have saved because treating them was too expensive? She stared at him, understanding dawning in her dark eyes. Neither have I, Danny said. Dr. Kess pocketed the disabling device without using it. Mr. Silva, you're talking about challenging systems that have been in place for centuries. You're a hospital janitor. I'm a hospital janitor who spent 20 years watching doctors and nurses save people everyone else had given up on. Danny moved to the scanner, running his fingers along its smooth surface. You know what I learned in all that time? The most important skill in emergency response isn't having fancy equipment or unlimited budgets. It's refusing to accept that someone can't be helped. But the scale is just logistics. Annie pulled up his phone and showed Dr. Kess his daughter's text about triage protocols. Carmen's studying to be a nurse. She's learning that in emergencies, you don't save everyone at once. You save who you can, as fast as you can, and you keep going until there's nobody left to save. Maria had been quiet, watching the display. Now she pointed to a cluster of dots near the edge of the galaxy. These ones are blinking faster. What does that mean? Dr. Kess checked the readout. Recent distress signals. Within the last 72 hours, she touched the closest one. Cargo hauler steady profit. 43 crew members. Engine failure in the Kepler shipping lanes. How far away? Danny asked. About 18 hours by fast courier ship. And how long before their life support fails? Dr. Kess hesitated. Based on standard cargo hauler specifications, maybe 5 days. Danny did the math, so someone could reach them in time. Mr. Silva, you don't understand. Even if you could charter a rescue ship, which would cost more money than you'll see in a lifetime, you have no legal authority to conduct rescue operations in council space. What if someone with legal authority wanted to help? Dr. Kess looked puzzled. I don't follow. Danny smiled. Dr. Kess, you work in pediatric medicine. You've taken an oath to do no harm, to preserve life wherever possible. If you knew where dying children were located and you had the means to save them, what would your oath require you to do? That's different. That's medical ethics. Is it? Danny gestured at the scanner. How is this different from a hospital emergency room? People are hurt, lost, dying. You have the information needed to save them. The only difference is scale. Maria moved closer to her husband. After 25 years, she recognized the look in Danny's eyes. It was the same expression he'd worn when he'd decided to adopt Carmen after her teenage mother couldn't care for her. The same look when he'd mortgaged the house to pay for their neighbor's cancer treatment. "Danny," she said quietly, "what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that Dr. Kess isn't the only medical professional who works with aliens at St. Mary's. I'm thinking that nurses and doctors from a dozen different species take the same oath to preserve life. And I'm thinking that none of them became healers so they could walk away from people who could be saved." Dr. Kess stared at him. "You're talking about organizing an unauthorized rescue network using stolen Galactic Council technology. I'm talking about doing our jobs." Danny touched the scanner again, and the display zoomed in on the steady prophet. "Look at this ship, 43 people. The scanner shows their life support is stable. Their hull is intact. They just need someone to fix their engines or tow them to safety. Mr. Silva, at the hospital, when someone comes to emergency with a problem we can fix, do we check their insurance first, or do we save their life first?" Dr. Kess fell silent. Maria stepped forward. "Dr. Kess, Danny's right. I've watched him fix things everyone said were beyond repair. Hospital equipment, broken down cars, people's lives. He doesn't give up, and he doesn't work alone." The scanner's humming grew louder, as if responding to the conversation. New information scrolled across the display, detailed schematics of the steady prophet, repair manuals, even psychological profiles of the crew to help with emergency counseling. "The scanner," Dr. Kess said wonderingly, "it's not just showing locations. It's providing everything needed for complete rescue operations." Annie nodded. "So the question is, Dr. Kess, are you going to help me save 43 people? Or are you going to let them die because the paperwork is too complicated?" Dr. Kess stared at the scanner for a full minute before speaking. "You're asking me to risk my medical license, my citizenship status, possibly my life." "I'm asking you to be a doctor," Danny replied simply. She touched her throat, where a small pendant hung the Zephyrian medical symbol. Danny realized, if we do this, we'll need more than good intentions. Rescue operations require ships, supplies, trained personnel. The hospital has connections, Maria said suddenly. Both Danny and Dr. Kess looked at her. "What?" "I pay attention at the staff barbecues. St. Mary's contracts with shipping companies for medical supply. Deliveries. Dr. Rodriguez in emergency has a brother who runs salvage operations. Nurse Takala from surgery mentioned her cousin pilot's freight runs to the outer colonies." Danny smiled at his wife. "See? Logistics. It's more complicated than that," Dr. Kess protested, but her tone had shifted. She was problem-solving now, not just objecting. "We'd need legitimate medical authority to justify rescue operations. Someone with credentials the council would have to respect." "What about Dr. Chun from the trauma unit?" Danny suggested. "She's got that fancy certification in emergency space medicine. Dr. Chun is human. The council might dismiss her authority in interspecies incidents." "What about you?" Maria asked. "You're Zephyrian. Don't your people have medical treaties with the council?" Dr. Kess nodded slowly. "The Zephyrian medical accords give our physicians emergency authority to provide aid to any species in distress. It's actually why I came to Earth, to study human emergency medicine techniques." "There you go," Danny said. "Legal authority solved. Legal authority to provide medical aid, yes. Not to organize a galaxy-wide rescue network using stolen council technology." Danny leaned against his workbench. "Dr. Kess, let me ask you something. When you treat a patient in emergency, do you worry about who's going to pay for the equipment you use, or do you just grab whatever will save their life?" "I grab whatever will save their life. And if the hospital administration later complains about costs or proper procedures, I deal with it later. The patient's life comes first. Same principle applies here." Dr. Kess looked at the scanner again. The steady prophet's indicator was blinking more urgently now. The crew's stress levels are increasing. They know their situation is deteriorating. "How long do we have to organize something?" Danny asked. "If we're going to attempt a rescue, we need to move within the next 12 hours. After that, even if we save them, some may die from prolonged exposure to elevated CO2 levels." Danny pulled out his phone. "Maria, can you call Carmen?" She's got study groups with nursing students from all the allied species programs. We need to find out who has family in shipping, freight, or transport. Danny, are you seriously organizing a rescue mission from our basement? I'm organizing a medical response to an emergency situation. There's a difference. Dr. Kess pulled out her own device. If we're doing this, we need to do it properly. I'll contact Dr. Chun and see if she's willing to provide human medical authority. We'll also need Nurse Tay Kala and Dorian Physiology is closer to the species on the Steady Prophet. What about supplies? Maria asked. The scanner has complete cargo manifests for every missing ship, Dr. Kess said, manipulating the display. Look, the Steady Prophet was carrying medical supplies to Kepler Station. If we can save the ship, we're also saving desperately needed medicine for thousands of colonists. Danny felt the familiar satisfaction of a plan coming together. So we're not just rescuing 43 people. We're ensuring medical supplies reach people who need them. The political implications become much more complex if we're interfering with critical supply deliveries, Dr. Kess warned. Good, Danny said. Harder to argue against saving lives when those lives include entire colonies. His phone buzzed. A text from Carmen. Dad, weird question, but my study partner Zix says Uncle Captain's a medical supply runner. Are you having some kind of emergency? Danny showed the message to Dr. Kess. Your daughter works fast. She learned triage protocols from me. Quick assessment, faster action. Dr. Kess was already typing on her device. I'm sending emergency medical consultation requests to every qualified physician I know who has transport connections. If we frame this as a medical emergency requiring immediate interspecies cooperation, we're not breaking laws, Maria finished. We're following medical protocols. Exactly. Dr. Kess looked up from her device. Mr. Silva, I hope you understand what you're starting. This won't end with one rescue. Danny looked at the scanner's display, showing hundreds of thousands of blinking lights. Each one a ship, a crew, a family, somewhere waiting for news that might never come. Good, he said. 20 minutes later, Danny's basement looked like a medical command center. Dr. Chun had arrived with her tablet and emergency protocols manual. Nurse Takala Tall, blue-skinned Andorian with silver hair, was coordinating with her cousin via subspace communicator. Carmen had driven over from her dorm with 3 study partners from different species, each with family connections and transport. Okay, Dr. Chun said, looking up from her tablet. I've got emergency medical authority to commandeer civilian vessels for rescue operations under Article 47 of the Interspecies Medical Emergency Protocols. It's legitimate, but it's also never been used for anything like this. What's our transport situation? Danny asked. Nurse Takala's antennae twitched, a sign of concentration. Danny had learned. My cousin Neck can have his medical supply runner here within 4 hours. It's fast enough to reach the Steady Prophet and equipped with emergency medical facilities. Cost? Dr. Kess asked. For a legitimate medical emergency, he'll do it at cost. About 8,000 credits. Danny winced. That was more than he made in 3 months. I can mortgage the house. Dad, no, Carmen interrupted. We'll figure out the money later. Right now we need to focus on the rescue. Zix, Carmen's reptilian study partner, looked up from his communicator. My uncle says he can donate fuel and emergency supplies. He lost a cousin to shipping accidents 5 years ago. The Zephyrian Medical Fund can cover transport costs, Dr. Kess added. We have emergency discretionary funding for interspecies medical crises. Danny felt a warmth in his chest. This was how hospitals worked during major emergencies. Everyone contributing what they could. Bureaucracy taking a back seat to saving lives. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing the basement in red. Danny heard vehicles pulling up outside multiple engines. Heavy ones. That's not the power company, Maria said quietly. Dr. Kess checked her communicator. I'm getting interference. Someone's jamming local communications. Danny moved to the small basement window and peered out. 3 black vehicles in his driveway, sleek and unmarked. Figures in dark uniforms were surrounding the house. Corporate security, Dr. Chon said grimly. I've seen this before during medical patent disputes. Someone knocked on the front door. 3 sharp official knocks. Mr. Silva, a voice called from upstairs. This is Galactic Salvage Authority. We're here about stolen property. They can't just break in, Carmen said. They can if they have a recovery warrant for stolen council technology, Dr. Kess replied. The question is whether they have legitimate authority or they're bluffing. More knocking, more insistent this time. We know you're in there, Mr. Silva. We have authorization to recover council property by any means necessary. Danny looked around at the group of medical professionals who'd assembled in his basement. Doctors, nurses, students, all of them committed to saving lives, all of them now at risk because a janitor had bought something for $2.50. There's a back entrance to the basement, he said quietly, through the garden. Maria knows the way. Danny, what are you thinking? His wife asked. I'm thinking that if they want the scanner, they can have it, but not the data. He turned to Dr. Kess. Can this thing transfer its database to another device? Theoretically, yes, but do it. Download everything to whatever devices we have here. Tablets, phones, whatever. Mr. Silva, the database is enormous. It would take hours to, and we download what we can. Starting with the most recent emergencies. The knocking stopped. Danny heard footsteps around the house, voices coordinating. They're surrounding us, Dr. Chun observed. Good, Danny said. That means they think we're important enough to worry about. Dr. Kess was already working at the scanner, her fingers flying over controls that looked more like musical instruments than computer interfaces. I can transfer the steady profit data and maybe 50 other recent emergencies to our devices. Do it, Danny, Maria said urgently. What happens when they arrest you? He looked at his wife, then at the group of people who'd come together to save strangers they'd never met. Same thing that happens when I get called to clean up after a difficult surgery. Someone else finishes the job. The basement window exploded inward as a figure in tactical gear swung through. The tactical officer landed gracefully, weapon drawn, scanning the room full of medical personnel clustered around alien technology. What he clearly hadn't expected was Dr. Chun stepping forward with her tablet, displaying official emergency medical credentials. Officer, she said calmly, you're interfering with an active medical emergency. I'm Dr. Sarah Chun, certified in emergency space medicine, and I'm invoking Article 47 of the Interspecies Medical Emergency Protocols. The officer hesitated. Ma'am, we're here to recover stolen Galactic Council property. This equipment is currently being used for legitimate medical emergency response. Dr. Kess added, moving to stand beside Dr. Chun. I am Dr. Kess of the Zephyrian Medical Authority. Any interference with emergency medical operations violates treaty law. More officers appeared at the basement entrance, but they seemed uncertain. Danny realized they'd prepared for dealing with criminals, not medical professionals asserting legal authority. Sir, one of them spoke into his communicator. We have a situation. Multiple medical personnel claiming emergency authority. Carmen stepped forward, holding her nursing student tablet. Officer, we're currently coordinating a rescue operation for 43 dying crew members. Every minute you delay increases the likelihood of fatalities. These people are not authorized to. Actually, they are. The voice came from the basement entrance. Danny looked up to see a woman in Galactic Council uniform descending the stairs. She was older, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority, and she looked profoundly tired. Commander Voss, Galactic Council Emergency Response Division. She showed her credentials to the tactical team leader. Stand down, Sergeant. Ma'am, our orders were to recover the stolen scanner. Your orders are now to provide support for legitimate emergency medical operations. Commander Voss looked around the basement, her gaze lingering on the scanner's display. Dr. Chun, Dr. Kess, I need a status report on the current emergency. Dr. Chun consulted her tablet. Cargo vessel steady profit, 43 crew members. Engine failure in the Kepler shipping lanes. Life support failing. Estimated 4.5 days remaining. We have a rescue vessel en route. Medical supplies aboard the Steady Prophet. Critical pharmaceutical shipment for Kepler Station's medical facilities. Without it, the station's pediatric ward will run out of essential medications within the week. Commander Voss nodded grimly. Sergeant, your team is now providing security support for this operation. Any corporate interference is to be considered obstruction of emergency medical services. The tactical officer looked confused. Ma'am, our briefing indicated this was a technology theft situation. Your briefing was provided by Galactic Salvage Consortium, who have a financial interest in recovering derelict vessels for scrap value rather than saving lives. Commander Voss's voice carried the weight of long frustration. I've been watching their salvage operations for years. They prefer empty hulks to living crews. Danny stepped forward. Commander, I think you should know this scanner doesn't just show current emergencies. It has records of every ship lost in the past 3 centuries. I know exactly what it is, Mr. Silva. Commander Voss moved to the scanner, studying the display. I helped design the original database architecture before the Council decided rescue operations were economically inefficient. Basement fell silent, except for the scanner's gentle humming. You worked on these systems? Dr. Kess asked. 25 years ago, I was Chief of Galactic Emergency Response. We saved thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of lives. Commander Voss touched one of the blinking dots. Then the corporate council ran cost-benefit analyses and decided it was cheaper to write off lost ships than maintain rescue capabilities. What changed your mind about stopping us? Danny asked. Commander Voss smiled, but it was sad. Mr. Silva, I never intended to stop you. I came here to make sure you did it right. She turned to the tactical team. Sergeant, I'm transferring command authority for this operation to the medical team. Your job is now to ensure their safety and success. Ma'am, what about the salvage consortium? What about them? They have no legal authority to interfere with emergency medical operations. Commander Voss pulled out her own device. Dr. Chun, you'll need additional authorization for extended rescue operations. I'm granting you temporary status as a Galactic Emergency Response Coordinator. Carmen looked at her father with wide eyes. Dad, did we just get recruited by the galactic government? I think, Danny said slowly. We just found out the galactic government has people who never stopped wanting to do the right thing. 4 hours later, Danny found himself in the most surreal situation of his life, sitting in his own basement, coordinating a space rescue via subspace communicator while Commander Voss provided tactical support and his wife made sandwiches for a team of intergalactic medical professionals. Vex's ship is approaching the Steady Prophet now, Nurse Takala reported, her antennae twitching with concentration. He's confirming visual contact with the disabled vessel. Dr. Chun monitored the medical readouts streaming from the scanner. Crew vital signs are stable but deteriorating. CO2 levels are at dangerous thresholds. We need to get them off that ship within the next 6 hours. What's the technical situation? Commander Voss asked. Danny consulted the scanner's diagnostic data. After 20 years of maintaining hospital equipment, the mechanical problems made sense to him. Engine coolant leak caused an overload in their primary drive system. The explosion damaged their navigation computer and killed their emergency beacon. Can it be repaired? Sure, if you've got the right parts. But even then, it's a 12-hour job minimum. Danny looked at the display, showing the crew's biometric data. They don't have 12 hours. So we evacuate the crew and abandon the ship? Dr. Kess asked. What about the medical supplies? Carmen pointed out. Kepler Station needs those medications. Danny studied the scanner's cargo manifest. The medical supplies are in temperature-controlled storage. If we can restore minimal power to the ship's refrigeration systems, we could tow the whole vessel to Kepler Station. Towing operations require specialized equipment, Commander Voss said. Actually, Zix spoke up from where he'd been monitoring communications. My uncle's salvage ship has towing capabilities. He's about 8 hours out from the Steady Prophet's position. That's cutting it close, Dr. Chun observed. Danny had an idea. What if we don't wait? Vex's ship can evacuate the crew now, then come back with towing equipment. The medical supplies would spoil without continuous refrigeration. Dr. Kess pointed out, not if someone stays behind to maintain the ship's life support systems. Danny looked at the technical specifications. One person could keep the refrigeration running and prep the ship for towing. Everyone stared at him. Danny, Maria said carefully, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that someone with 20 years of experience maintaining critical life support systems could keep a ship's refrigeration working for 8 hours. Mr. Silva, Commander Voss said, you're not trained for space operations. Neither were the 43 people we're about to save. Danny gestured at the scanner. Commander, look at this data. The ship's systems are similar to hospital equipment I work with every day. Life support, backup power, emergency systems, it's the same principles, just bigger. Dr. Chun was already shaking her head. The medical liability alone. Dr. Chun, with respect, I'm not asking for your medical permission. I'm telling you what needs to happen to save both the crew and the medical supplies. Nurse Takala S. Antennae drooped with concern. The psychological stress of being alone on a damaged ship ... double quotes. I won't be alone. Danny pointed to the scanner. This thing provides complete technical support, diagnostic data, step-by-step repair procedures. It's like having a manual for everything. Commander Voss studied the technical readouts. It's actually not a terrible plan. The ship's hull is intact, life support is functional, and the technical requirements are within civilian maintenance capabilities. This is insane, Dr. Kess muttered. This is triage, Danny corrected. We have limited resources and multiple problems. We prioritize what saves the most lives. Maria walked over and stood beside her husband. If Danny goes, I go. Maria, 25 years of marriage, Mio. You don't get to be a hero without me. Carmen looked at her parents, then at the scanner showing 43 people whose lives hung in the balance. Okay, but if Mom and Dad are going on a space adventure, I'm coming too. Someone needs to monitor their medical status. This is turning into a family vacation, Commander Voss observed dryly. No, Danny said, looking around at the basement full of doctors, nurses, students, and officials from multiple species who'd come together to save strangers. This is turning into what humans do best. Which is? Dr. Kess asked. We don't leave people behind. 18 hours later, Danny Silva found himself floating in the corridor of the cargo ship Steady Prophet, wearing a borrowed emergency suit and carrying a toolkit that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The artificial gravity was offline, but after years of reaching awkward spaces to fix hospital equipment, zero-G maintenance felt oddly familiar. Okay, beautiful, he said to the scanner's portable unit, floating beside him. Walk me through this refrigeration system. The device projected a three-dimensional schematic of the ship's cooling systems. Danny studied it the same way he'd examined countless hospital diagrams, looking for the logical flow, understanding how each component supported the others. Dad, your heart rate is elevated. Carmen's voice came through the comm system from Next medical ship, now safely carrying the Steady Prophet's crew to Kepler Station. I'm fine, Mia. Just figuring out how alien refrigeration works. Danny propelled himself toward the cargo bay, following the scanner's guidance. It's actually not that different from the big freezers in the hospital cafeteria. Except the hospital freezers don't keep vaccines for 30,000 colonists, Maria's voice added. She and Carmen were monitoring from the medical ship, providing remote support. Danny reached the cargo bay and stopped. Row upon row of temperature-controlled containers filled the space, each one containing medications that could save lives across an entire star system. The scanner showed him which containers were most critical cancer treatments, pediatric vaccines, surgical supplies for trauma cases. Temperature holding steady at -42 degrees, he reported. Backup power is functioning, but I can see the problem. The main cooling unit had a fractured coolant line, exactly the kind of problem Danny had fixed dozens of times in the hospital. Not the same technology, but the same principal fluid wasn't flowing where it needed to go. Dr. Kess, are you monitoring the technical readouts? Danny asked. Yes, Mr. Silva. The temporary repair should hold for another 6 hours, but you'll need to manually cycle the backup systems every 40 minutes. Danny pulled out his toolkit and began working. Zero gravity actually made it easier to reach the damaged components. Commander Voss, what's our status with the towing operation? Zix's uncle will reach you in 4 hours. Corporate interference has been minimal. Meaning 3 salvage consortium ships tried to intercept the rescue operation and found themselves facing a Galactic Council emergency. Response fleet. Danny smiled as he tightened connections on the coolant line. I'm guessing they decided salvage rights weren't worth fighting the Council Navy. You'd guess correctly. As Danny worked, the scanner provided constant updates, not just on the Steady Prophet systems, but on the broader rescue network that had emerged. Dr. Chun was coordinating from St. Mary's Hospital, which had somehow become an unofficial Galactic Emergency Response Center. Medical professionals from dozens of species were volunteering ships, supplies, and expertise. Dad, Carmen's voice carried excitement. You need to see what's happening back on Earth. Kind of busy keeping medicine cold. Mia, the story went viral across the galactic net. Human janitor buys scanner for pocket change. saves 43 lives. Every medical school and council space is organizing volunteer rescue crews. Danny paused in his work. What? It gets better, Commander Voss added. The Zephyrian Medical Authority has officially requested council review of the decision to abandon rescue operations. The Andorian Trade Alliance is offering to fund a permanent rescue fleet. Even the Kepler colonists are naming their new pediatric wing after you. They can't name a hospital wing after me. I'm a janitor. You're a janitor who proved that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had forgotten. The most basic principle of civilization, Dr. Kess said quietly, that every life has value worth saving. Danny finished the coolant line repair and moved to the next system. The work was methodical, familiar, satisfying in the way that all good maintenance work satisfied him. Fix what's broken, keep what matters running, make sure people stay safe. Scanner, show me the next ship that needs help. The device projected a new display, the merchant vessel Dawn's Edge. 15 crew members. Navigation failure in the Arcturus system. How far out? 12 hours by fast courier. Medical authority? Dr. Chun's voice came through clearly. Already arranged. Dr. Martinez from cardiology has Centauran emergency credentials. She's coordinating with a volunteer crew. Danny looked out the cargo bay viewport at the stars stretching endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, 15 more people were waiting for help that had never come before in a galaxy that had decided rescue was too expensive. Commander Voss, he said, I think we're going to need a bigger basement. By the time Zix's uncle arrived to tow the Steady Prophet to safety, Danny's basement had become the unofficial headquarters of what the galactic media was calling the Human Initiative, though Danny still insisted it was just doing our jobs. Mr. Silva, Commander Voss said, as they watched the Steady Prophet dock safely at Kepler Station, I need to brief you on the political situation. They were back in the basement, which now housed communication equipment from 3 different galactic civilizations, medical monitoring stations, and a coffee maker that Maria had declared essential for mission-critical operations. Political situation? Your little rescue operation has triggered the largest review of Council emergency response policies in 2 centuries. Commander, Voss pulled up holographic displays showing council chambers filled with delegates from hundreds of worlds. The Salvage Consortium has filed formal complaints about interference with their operations. Let me guess, Danny said, checking the scanner's display of current emergencies. They're upset because we saved people instead of letting them die so ships could be looted. That's exactly their complaint. Yes. Dr. Kess looked up from where she was coordinating medical supplies for the next rescue mission. What are the political implications? Well, 17 different civilizations have formally requested to join the rescue network. Medical schools across the galaxy are restructuring their curricula to include emergency space rescue protocols. The Kepler colonists have petitioned to establish Earth as the official headquarters for galactic emergency medical response. Danny paused in his work. They want to do what now? Apparently, Mr. Silva, your species' approach to emergency response has impressed a lot of people. The concept of no one gets left behind is novel in galactic politics. Carmen looked up from her tablet, where she was coordinating with student volunteers across 3 star systems. Dad, there's something else. The scanner isn't just showing lost ships anymore. What do you mean? Show him, Dr. Kess. Dr. Kess manipulated the scanner's controls, and the display expanded to show not just emergency vessels, but infrastructure, medical stations running low on supplies, colony ships with failing life support, research stations that had lost contact with their home worlds. The scanner's database has been updating itself, Dr. Kess explained. Every time we coordinate a rescue, it learns more about emergency response logistics. It's becoming less of a tracking device and more of a comprehensive emergency management system. It's learning from watching us work, Maria observed. More than that, Commander Voss said. It's integrating with volunteer networks across the galaxy. Medical facilities, transport companies, supply distributors, everyone who's joined the rescue network. Danny stared at the display. What had started as a simple question, can we save 43 people, had become something unprecedented. A galaxy-wide emergency response network organized not by governments or corporations, but by medical professionals and volunteers who decided that every life was worth saving. Mr. Silva, Commander Voss continued, the Council is prepared to offer you official status as Galactic Emergency Response Coordinator. I'm not qualified for that. You're the most qualified person in the galaxy for that. You've demonstrated that effective emergency response isn't about having the most advanced technology or the biggest budget. It's about refusing to accept that someone can't be helped. The scanner chimed softly. A new emergency had appeared on the display, a passenger liner with 300 souls aboard. Medical crisis in the Vega system. Dr. Chun, Danny called upstairs. We've got a big one. Already on it, came the reply. Medical transport is lifting off from Luna Base in 20 minutes. Dr. Rodriguez's team is coordinating with Vegan Medical Authority. Danny looked around his basement. 3 days ago, it had been his workshop where he fixed hospital equipment and tinkered with broken things. Now, it was the nerve center of an organization that spanned the galaxy, staffed by people who'd learned that the most important skill in emergency response wasn't technical expertise. It was the refusal to give up. Commander, he said finally, I'll take the job on one condition. What's that? I keep my day job at the hospital. Someone needs to make sure the floors stay clean. Commander Voss smiled. I think we can arrange that, Mr. Silva. Outside, Danny could hear Maria talking to reporters from 17 different worlds, explaining in her patient teacher's voice that her husband wasn't a hero. He was just a man who'd learned that when someone needed help, you helped them. The scanner hummed softly, displaying thousands of lights across the galaxy. Each one a ship, a station, a life that might need saving. Each one someone who wouldn't be left behind. Danny Silva arrived at St. Mary's Hospital at 5:30 a.m., just like he had every weekday for the past 20 years. He parked his pickup truck in the same spot, grabbed his maintenance kit from the back, and headed for the service entrance. The only difference was the small device clipped to his belt, a portable version of the scanner that kept him connected to emergency operations across the galaxy. Morning, Danny, called Nurse Patterson from the emergency department as he passed. Heard about the rescue in the Sirius system. 300 miners saved. Nice work. Team effort, Danny replied. The same thing he always said, just doing our jobs. He made his way to the janitor's closet on the 3rd floor and began his morning routine, checking supply levels, reviewing maintenance requests, planning his day. The familiar ritual grounded him, reminded him of who he was beneath all the Galactic Coordinator titles and media attention. The scanner chimed softly. Danny glanced at the display. A research station in the Tau Ceti system was reporting equipment failures. Nothing critical yet, but worth monitoring. Dr. Chun would handle the coordination from her new office in what used to be the hospital's abandoned West Wing. The space had been converted into the official Earth headquarters of the Galactic Emergency Medical Response Network, complete with subspace communication arrays and representatives from 47 different civilizations. Mr. Silva, a young voice made him turn. It was Dr. Park, one of the new residents, looking nervous. Morning, Dr. Park. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you. My sister was on that passenger liner in the Vega system, the one your team saved 3 months ago. Danny set down his mop bucket. How's she doing? Full recovery. She's back at university now, studying emergency medical protocols. Dr. Park smiled. She says she wants to join the rescue network when she graduates. Tell her we can always use good people. As Dr. Park walked away, Danny reflected on how often these conversations happen now. Every week, someone at the hospital mentioned a relative, friend, or colleague who'd been helped by the rescue network. The galaxy, it turned out, was smaller than most people realized. Everyone knew someone who'd been lost in space, or feared lost, or rescued just in time. His scanner chimed again. This time it was a message from Commander Voss. Council vote scheduled for today. Formal recognition of the network as official Galactic Emergency Response Authority. Thought you'd want to know. Danny typed back. Will it change how we do the work? Not if I have anything to say about it. Danny smiled and got back to mopping. Down the hall, he could hear Dr. Kess explaining emergency triage protocols to a mixed group of human and alien medical students. The sound had become familiar. The hospital now hosted the galaxy's first interspecies emergency medicine program. Danny, Maria's voice called from around the corner. She appeared carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing her new ID badge. Maria Silva, Director of Interspecies Medical Education. Thought you might need this, she said, handing him a cup. Long night monitoring the Rigel situation? Got it sorted around 3 a.m. Dr. Martinez's team handled the medical response beautifully. They walked together toward the elevator, a married couple discussing galactic emergencies, the same way they used to talk about Carmen's homework or the neighbor's broken fence. Danny, do you ever think about how crazy this all is? You mean the fact that buying a broken scanner for $250 led to reorganizing how an entire galaxy handles emergencies? That's exactly what I mean. Danny considered the question as they rode the elevator down to the main floor. Through the windows, he could see the construction crews working on the new Emergency Response Training Center. Ships from a dozen worlds were parked in what used to be the hospital's back parking lot. You know what's really crazy? He said finally. None of it feels crazy anymore. It just feels like ... expansion. Expansion. Same work we always did. Same principles. Just bigger scale. Danny gestured toward the emergency department, where Dr. Chun was coordinating with rescue teams in 3 different star systems. We're still just people helping people who need help. The elevator doors opened, revealing Carmen in her new nurse's uniform, talking rapidly to a tall, crystalline being Danny recognized as one of the silicate healers. Dad, she called. Perfect timing. I want you to meet Healer Resonance. She's joining the Pediatric Rescue Specialty Program. As Danny shook hands carefully, since silicate beings could shatter if handled roughly, he marveled at how natural it all felt. 6 months ago, meeting an alien healer would have been the most extraordinary thing that ever happened to him. Now it was just Tuesday. That evening, Danny sat in his basement workshop, which had returned to its original purpose now that the emergency response network operated from proper facilities at the hospital. The original scanner sat on his workbench. No longer the only one of its kind, Dr. Kess's team had figured out how to manufacture them using a combination of Zephyrian biotechnology and human engineering principles. But this one was special. This was the scanner that had started everything. The device he'd bought for pocket change because it was beautiful and broken and nobody else wanted it. Still thinking about patterns? Maria asked, coming downstairs with 2 glasses of iced tea. Always thinking about patterns. Danny accepted the tea gratefully. You know what I realized today? What's that? The scanner didn't teach us anything new. It just showed us something we already knew, but had forgotten to apply. Maria settled into the chair beside his workbench, which was that when someone needs help, you help them. Doesn't matter if they're in the next room or the next galaxy. Doesn't matter if it's cost-effective or politically convenient. You help because that's what people do for each other. The scanner's display showed its usual array of lights viewer. Now, thanks to the rescue network's expanded operations, but still thousands of vessels, stations, and installations across the galaxy that might need assistance someday. The galaxy's civilizations got so advanced, so efficient, so focused on cost-benefit analysis that they forgot the most basic principle of civilization. Danny continued. Take care of each other. And it took a human janitor to remind them. It took a human janitor to remind everyone, including ourselves. Danny pointed to a news report on his tablet showing the network's latest statistics. Over 15,000 successful rescues, 200,000 lives saved, and emergency response times across the galaxy cut by 60%. But the real change isn't in the numbers, Maria. It's in how people think about emergencies. 6 months ago, when someone went missing in space, their families hoped for the best, but expected the worst. Now they know someone's looking, someone's coordinating, someone cares enough to keep trying. Maria leaned over and kissed his cheek. I'm proud of you, Mio. I'm proud of all of us. Danny gestured upward, toward where Carmen was video calling with her study group, now an intergalactic network of medical students who routinely discussed emergency protocols for species they'd never heard of 6 months ago. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Chun. Tau City Research Station is fine. Equipment malfunction was resolved by their maintenance crew using protocols from our technical database. No rescue needed. Danny smiled. That was the best kind of emergency call, the ones that didn't become emergencies. Because someone had the right information at the right time. You know what the scanners really taught me? Danny said, looking at the device that had changed his life and arguably the galaxy. Tell me, value isn't determined by price tags or official assessments. That scanner was worth more than the GDP of most planets, but everyone at that auction saw it as worthless junk because it didn't come with documentation or warranties. And you saw it as something beautiful that needed fixing. Same way I see everything. Danny, stood up and walked to the small window, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed impossibly distant. Broken things can be fixed. Lost people can be found. Systems that don't work can be improved. You just have to be willing to try. The scanner chimed softly. Not an emergency, just its regular status update. All systems functioning. Network operational. Galaxy-wide emergency response, coordinated by medical professionals, volunteers, and a janitor who'd learned that the most sophisticated technology in the universe was useless without the simple human principle of refusing to give up on people who needed help. Danny picked up his mop and bucket. Tomorrow was a workday, and St. Mary's Hospital would need its floors cleaned, its equipment maintained, its systems kept running smoothly. The same work he'd always done, just with a slightly larger service area. Outside, stars twinkled in the darkness, each one representing worlds where people lived and worked, and sometimes needed help from strangers who cared enough to answer the call. Danny, Maria called from upstairs. Carmen wants to know if you'll help her study for her advanced alien physiology exam. Tell her I'll be right up, Danny replied, setting down his cleaning supplies. After all, when someone needs help, you help them. That's what people do for each other.